10 seconds.
The pressure. It was like a real production.
5, 4, 3.
Yeah, the countdown, really.
1. And we're live.
All right, let's get it going. And there it is. I'm setting up the YouTube. We're live.
10 seconds. I'm monitoring the YouTube.
The pressure. It was like a real production.
5, 4, 3.
Yeah, the countdown, really.
1.
I'm coming on in this thing.
I hear the YouTube live playing back, so I hope it doesn't do that the whole time that we're speaking. Do you hear it playing back as we're speaking?
I heard it at first, but not anymore.
And there it is.
I can still hear it playing back a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did I get it to stop last time? Let's share it quick.
Are you watching it on?
Oh, do you have it on or something? Turn it off, please. I hear the YouTube live playing back, so I hope it doesn't do that the whole time that we're speaking. Do you hear it playing back as we're speaking?
I heard it at first.
Yes.
All right.
I can still hear it playing back a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did I get it to stop last time? Let's share it quick.
You muted something. I think you
Are you
muted
watching it on?
Let me mute it.
Yeah, you muted it. The other tab, but you muted it.
Let's see. Do you hear it playing back? Give me just 1 second, ladies. Mute. Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. So
Yes,
the
we
trick
can
was to remind me in the future, the trick was for us to mute the YouTube live in order for us not to hear it as we're on the conversation live. So there we go.
We learning as we go. It's cool.
Huh? Say again.
Are we learning as we go?
We are learning as we go, and it's pretty cool. So it's good?
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I want to first welcome everyone to the virtual connection. For those of you who have not ever attended one of these events before, basically the whole thing is we assign a podcast out weekly, and then, or not weekly, now it's bi-weekly because we used to be weekly, now we're every other week. So we assign a podcast out beforehand. And all we ask you to do is listen to the podcast. Typically, the podcast episode will be about 25, 30 minutes, just because we know that we are like conquering the world and we have 1,000 different responsibilities. So you don't have a whole lot of time to sit there and listen to a podcast, right? But after you listen, we come together and we love to hear what you were able to take from the podcast. And then we have questions based on the content, right? To take the conversation a little bit further and to see what learnings we can pick from the conversation. So I generally have a presentation showing. Oh, wow, I haven't seen the faces in so long.
Right.
Because I generally do the, I usually put up a presentation. So I'm going to put it up for just a second. And then, well, actually, I'll put it up at the end in a minute. So I want to start with a question, right? So I'm going to open up the chat before we even get going. And do all of you know how to access the chat on your phones or computers? All right. So I'd love for you all in the chat to tell me one thing you love about yourself externally and one thing you love about yourself internally.
Okay. Am I the only one who hears the texting, like sending and?
No, yes, I was gonna ask that question because
too.
I was like, I hear that. Does anybody hear that? So if you have not put yourself on mute, I'm gonna go ahead and start putting everyone on mute who is not speaking. I do apologize, but I just need to make sure that that's done because I hear text and I thought it was me. I was like, who is texting? So, okay, sorry you guys. Go ahead, Tiff. Sorry.
So in the chat, let's see it. I want you to type one thing you love about yourself internally and one thing you love about yourself externally. And it could be, you know, I love my eyes, I love my hair, I love my hips. It doesn't matter. We're here for it all. Maria Vanessa says, externally my butt, internally I'm a big helper. Shantae, internally my ability to see beneath the layer. Felicia said, I love my stretch marks externally. I love my soul internally. I love that. going too fast. All right. Externally, I love my smile from Shantae. Dominique, externally, my smile. Internally, tenacity. Alani, I love my heart. Tiffany, externally, she didn't say anything. I'm waiting for Tiff to say something back to me. Oh, Tiffany. Oh my gosh. I haven't seen you in so many years. You're like a whole grown woman now. That's my daughter's friend from like middle school and high school. That's so cool. Hi, Tiff. All right. Sorry to put you on the spot. I'm so sorry. Ola, externally smile, internally compassionate. Eb, internally my passion and loyalty, externally ankles. That's a neat thing to have, Eb, cool ankles, because I don't have nice ankles. I mean, you know, we're blessed with what we're blessed with. Akira, my heart, how thick I am. Akira is her heart.
Akira.
Which one is internal? Which one is external?
She did you like that, girl. She did.
Evie says, love externally her hair. Their hair. Love internally my brain. Tiffany Williams, my heart internally. Trinae, externally smile, internally heart. Arlesia, I love my hair, internally my resilience. Someone on an iPhone, no name, it says my confidence, internally. From Jocelyn, internally heart, externally hair. Precious, externally my skin tone, and internally my brain. That's inside my head, right? Laugh out loud. Yes, I believe your brains are inside your head, Precious. Internally loyalty and protective nature, externally height. You know what? I asked you all this question.
You hadn't even thought about it.
I hadn't even thought about my answer. So
why are you thinking? No, I just wanted to recognize like progress, right? Because we had a podcast talking about self-love and self-care, and there was a struggle.
A live chat thing.
Huh?
Somebody's talking. Let me mute it. All right, there you go.
There we go. Yeah, there was a struggle with people identifying what they loved about themselves, and y'all was spitfiring today, so we see some growth and progress. All right,
I would have to agree with that. And so I guess externally, I love my smile too. I just love smiling. And then internally, it's a blessing and a curse, but I love how resilient I am. Like I'll keep going, sometimes to my detriment. Even when I say that, my eyes start to get watery, just thinking about the fact that I pound it out of myself a lot of the times. Welcome to the virtual connection again. For those of you who are not familiar with the platform, I'm going to go ahead and start to show the presentation, and then I might take a pause from the presentation because seeing your faces, it just feels so much like better in terms of engaging with the conversation. And so I don't want to lose that connection, but there are some points that I want to go through before we get into the conversation. So let me go ahead and pull it up. All right. So there's our presentation. And so just as a reminder, the call is being streamed on YouTube Live. So of course you all willingly engage in the conversation, and you understand that we are not going to be going back to edit any of the content. So if you don't want to share something, don't feel required to have to share, because we won't be able to edit it out of the conversation once it's said. Our opinions on the topic at hand are our own opinions, and they do not reflect any of the companies or brands Shantae and I are affiliated with, to include our own private practices and, you know, companies we work for and all of that. Mama Rika is on the call. I'm going to unmute her if she is free, so she can kind of walk you through she can walk you through the house rules. So go ahead.
Greeting, ladies. Happy Friday once again. I hope you've guys seen the chat messages that I've been actually welcoming you all in. Thanks for the newcomers, the old comers. We're happy to see you again. The way it works is that if you have a question in your participation box, you can actually tap that and you'll see raise hand. If you raise your hand, it'll let us know that, hey, you have a question, a comment, or a statement dealing with what is going on at hand. If you want to just comment and not necessarily raise a hand, you feel free to use that chat box. We are always reading that, and you may say something and I'm like, oh, she said something really good. But yeah, I'm on there as well. Also, if you're on YouTube, we can see the chats, and I will be commenting on the bottom and letting Tiffany know, hey, there are some YouTube viewers rather, who are also watching as well. So if you can, just for testing purposes, because I like to make sure we're safe, go to your participation. And for the new ones, raise your hand so I can see. There you go. Hey, Ola. Oh, look at here. Thank you. Thanks, Dominique. Thanks, Stephanie, PJ, Lauren, Tiffany. All right, so everybody got it. So I will lower the hand for you guys. Thank you, Kyra. Hi, bestie. So that way you guys can do it. Tiffany, take it away.
Thank you so much. And so I guess we'll start with a word from Shantae and I. We have a lot of new faces on the call. So Shantae, I think it's appropriate for you to introduce yourself and then you can kind of start the conversation and I'll go from there.
Okay, hey guys, hey y'all, hey. So I am the homegirl therapist. My name is Shantae Jackson, and I am a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Texas and now the good state of Georgia.
Yay!
So I enjoy using my platform to amplify and normalize therapy, the importance of therapy, the importance of like healing yourself and just you learning to be a better version of yourself. And so I get excited about talking about self-care, self-love, self-awareness. For this topic or for this podcast, for me, it went deeper and it's where I feel like we are now, right? And so my hope is that today you just allow yourself to be open, to be challenged, and to be open to, jumpstart your journey for your own healing and your own emotional intelligence and self-awareness. And so I hope that something from tonight resonates with you that you can keep for yourself and share with your homies.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I am Tiffany Ellis, and those of you who don't know me, I am the founder and creator of Pods and PR, which now looks like the Virtual Connection. We used to host Pods and PR. They were in-person pop-up events. And that's where Shantae and I really connected. And we discovered we had this like dope bond that it's unmatched. And once COVID struck, we had to find a way to still show up for our community. We realized that our services were more needed then more than ever before. And so we decided to come together, join forces, and create this virtual platform where we connect with dynamic women. And our goal for the platform is to normalize therapy, to increase emotional and mental well-being, and to improve emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. So that, in a nutshell, explains what Pods and PR is. No need for me to, and Virtual Connection, I'm sorry. So no need for me to read this script again, because basically I just explained that. What you'll learn is that we ask open-ended questions, and our questions are going to challenge some of your assumptions. But we want you to be comfortable and confident in positioning your thoughts. So if we ask you a question and you don't necessarily agree with the position that's been presented, well, we want to hear about it, right? We don't always agree, but we are always respectful. We're always intentional in the way that we communicate with one another. And so that's what you're going to find a lot of in this conversation tonight. We hope to encourage you to see things in a way that supports your growth. That's the overall purpose of the conversation. And while these conversations are very therapeutic, and we do have a licensed professional therapist on the call, we want to remind you that these calls should not substitute your regular visits with your mental health clinician, and you should still be seeking therapy outside of these conversations.
That part.
So we have a giveaway, and what I'm going to ask Arlesia, because I'm just going to put her on the spot, I'm so sorry. Arlesia, if you can please take the names of every woman who's logged onto the call so far. And Rika, if you can jot the names of everybody who's watching right now on YouTube Live, and we can put those names together on a list. And there's a brand called Inspire Self-Love. I happened to come across the brand the other day. I love it. It's cute. And her mission is basically to just inspire self-love, right? Whenever you purchase from her store, 10% of the proceeds will go towards nonprofits supporting women and young girls. And so we purchased a shirt and some sticky notes from her store. and we're going to gift it to a random winner tonight on our conversation. And then also, if you shop with her store through the month of July, she's given us a coupon code, Tay and Tiff. You get 10% off of the store. So please check her out on social media. It is Inspire Self-Love, and she has some really cute teas. I love these sticky notes because I'm a sucker for affirmations. And so I could see myself totally taking a pile of these I am and every day just writing what you are and sticking it on the mirror. So please pay her store a visit when you get a chance and pick up some of her cool merchandise. So Shantae, do you want to tell the people about Minority Mental Health Awareness Month?
Yes, so Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, this is the month where we highlight and amplify Black and Brown individuals who are in need, right? And making it aware that mental health matters and everyone deals with it differently. And so we really want to take this month to amplify, this month and every month, to amplify the importance of mental health in our communities and the things that we need. Because a lot of times we are in places where these services are not accessible and it can be difficult. And a lot of times I'm aware of people having to kind of jump through hoops just to get assistance for their mental health. And so this month was created for just that reason, to make sure that we improve access to mental health treatment and services, and we promote public awareness of mental illness. And so the name came from Bibi Moore Campbell. She was a writer and she wrote a lot about mental health and her experiences. And so she really advocated and kind of doing what we're doing, right? Like going around and speaking on mental health and making it practical and normalizing it for our communities. And so this is a really important month. And that's what Minority Mental Health Awareness Month is. It's such a long name, right? And it's just like, but it's super important, y'all. It's super important.
I agree. And just so you know too, I've been doing a lot of research now as I've really kind of accepted this placement as a mental health advocate, working with Shantae. And I saw today that 58% of people ages 19 to 25 report having a serious mental illness that's gone untreated. When you look at 26 to 47, it was like 50%, right? So that's it's more than half the people walking around suffering from some sort of serious mental illness. And I believe for so long, therapy's been stigmatized, and we've been encouraged to suffer in silence. And so what happens is we're not getting the help we need to really show up as our best selves. And so platforms like this one and many of the other ones are going to help you to kind of normalize, get the idea in your head, like, this is okay, I can do this and I can work through this pain and push forward. So the Homecoming Podcast. The Homecoming Podcast is by Dr. Thema Bryant Davis, who is a licensed psychologist, ordained minister, and sacred artist, using artistic expression, spirituality, psychology, and culture. Dr. Bryant Davis is an internationally recognized lecturer, performer, and minister. And so her podcast is basically created to facilitate your journey home to yourself by providing weekly inspiration and health tips. I'm going to come off the screen share for a second because I want to see your faces when we have this part of the conversation, and then we'll hop back on it. But I would love for you all to tell me, if you listened to the podcast episode, what you thought about the podcast. And y'all know I was school teacher you. So please raise your hands and let me know what you thought about the podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Alicia got her hand raised, and then Jocelyn.
Okay.
I would definitely say that the podcast was very helpful. I actually started really getting into self-care, self-love, all that good stuff last year when I started going through a different experience. And so actually hearing some of the things that coincided with some of the things I wanted to do with myself was like actually helpful. And even hearing the part about when she said you're bored, and basically when you're bored, you're not using your talents, or, your soul is not being, used properly. And I had to sit back and be like, man, I'm not really bored. I just need to get back to me and what I really like to do, and, you know, things that are good about myself that people loved that I did. So, you know, that was definitely helpful and beneficial for me, so I can, you know, get back on the right track and get back focused on things that I know I want to do and things that will make me happy and make me whole.
I love that.
Awesome.
So I shared briefly before everything was officially popping, but it was very convicting for me because I have just started learning about self-love, like how to physically, mentally, spiritually love myself. And everything that I thought that I was doing for self-care was not necessarily to love myself. It was things that I was thinking that I needed to like relax, but it wasn't really feeding into the love portion of that I needed to. And when she was talking about the differences between the two, that just it made me sit back and pause and be like, oh man, I still have so much more work to do to learn self-love, because a lot of people mix the two. They think that self-love and self-care are the same thing, and it's not. So that was a definite, like, let me dog mark, what they call it, dog earmark that little part right there. I definitely had to go back and listen to that one again and again.
I love it. I'll go for me and I'll say it was a tough one. I was actually feeling fine before I started. So I listened to it like 3 times before today, because I listened to the podcast episodes over and over again prior to the conversation, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. For me personally, every time I listen, I hear something else, right? And I don't know if you all are the same way, but I like to go back and make sure I catch everything. But today, for some reason, all of a sudden the words just started sticking on me. And so I was like, good. And then I'm listening, I'm like, I felt really convicted. I got really uncomfortable. And then there was this weird space where it was like, I'm in my head trying to validate, but you do love you because you're doing da da da, but then you're not doing. And so I started like conducting checks and balances, and it just happened to happen right before the call. And so I text Shantae like, sis, I'm not in a good mood. I'm not in a good place. I can't do this call tonight, because how am I going to be facilitating a conversation about self-love? And like right now I'm in this weird space. And so that's one of the, yeah, go ahead.
That's the beauty of it. We were talking about this too before everyone got on. It's just, we are all in this constant transition of kind of defining, learning, discovering ourselves, right? And so no one that we talk to should be at a place where they're just completely like, I'm good, there's nothing left for me to learn or go through. Like, that's not gonna happen. And I think that having that transparency helps other people, right? Because we put on like we good and we have it together. And it's just like, no, that next person needs to hear like, yeah, I've come far, right? I made a lot of progress, but I'm still, struggling with this or that. And so it's super important to say, hey, it's still hitting me too. I don't have it all together. Even me as a therapist, like I can have notes that I wrote from this podcast, and I listen to this woman all the time. And it's just, it hits you at different times because you're going to be in different spaces in our lives. And so it's super important to share, like, I thought I had it, but now I dropped that ball. I still got some work to do.
I love the way you explained that. Dominique, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I really liked when she said that self-care is not being selfish, because I think that's something that I've struggled with a lot is, setting boundaries and then feeling guilty about them. So that was affirming for me.
I love it. I love it. A lot of times we are taught that self-care is selfish. And so that's the hard part, right? Because now it's reconditioning our mind to accept that she said, you're worth rest. You're worth taking a bath. I'm like, dang, like, you're right. Low key, there have been days where it's like, I don't have the time to bathe. And it's like, no, you're worth this bath. Like, stop what you're doing.
Yes.
Y'all don't judge me. Y'all don't do
hey, y'all been there. Listen. Yeah, my
Maria Vanessa's hand is up. Maria Vanessa?
So the point Dominique brought up was one of many. I think I was internalizing my inner Jada the whole time, because I was like, that part, that one, yes, that part, like over and over. And I was driving when I was listening to it, and I haven't been able to listen to it again because I was driving again today. But I'm like, I gotta sit down and like write all these notes because every so often I was like, yes, that one, like that point. And it was just one after another where, like you said, I did feel victimized on a lot of them. Like, well, but like everybody else needs me. But you know that saying, you can't pour out of an empty glass. So, so yeah, definitely. It hurt listening to it, but it's one of those, you just got to hear the truth sometimes and know you got to work on yourself. So
Yeah.
That's the first step, right? Being willing to accept the truth is so difficult sometimes. Tiffany, your hand is up, and then we'll go back to Felicia.
Well, I love the podcast, and I loved how y'all were talking about how codependency is addictive. And I love the perspective on Will listening through, because he had something on his chest too. Like I didn't take that perspective on, but it was great.
Awesome, very nice. Felicia, your hand is up.
I just wanted to add, I think that for me in my situation and listening to the podcast, I definitely understood about how neglecting self-care and self-love led to a lot of consequences. And I definitely look back at how I fell off in a lot of ways, you know, like lacking self-care and self-love as far as my appearance came, and, you know, how I treated people, even the people I allowed in my circle were detrimental to me, but I wasn't realizing that because I didn't really like myself, or I was going through so many different things, because at the end of the day, as being a mom and being a wife, I was trying to make sure my daughter was okay. I was trying to make sure my husband was okay, trying to make sure everybody else was okay, but I wasn't taking care of myself. And so I noticed like myself kind of falling into almost like a depression, because I'm like, man, I'm not happy. And I'm like, it never like really like dawned on me that I'm not happy because I'm not taking care of myself. And so, you know, looking back at all the pain and hurt that I inflicted on myself and others, that was definitely like a wake up call. And like, listening to the podcast just kept reminding me and, you know, letting me know like, hey, you can't fall these old habits because these consequences are going to happen again. And it may be a lot worse than the previous one. So that was definitely something that stuck out to me, and making sure that I try to keep up with things that I consider to be self-care or self-love for myself. And, you know, making sure that I take care of my emotions and, you know, set those boundaries for myself, so that way I don't have to deal with your emotions and deal with things that you have going on until I can, you know, at least deal with my own first.
I agree with that. You know, I'm in a place now where I'm feeling like more and more self-care needs to become the priority. So where self-care was like an item on my to-do list, like it was like, oh yeah, spend an hour with yourself, you know, so do all these things. And then somewhere in there, you like scribble in 1 hour of personal care or personal time. And as the demands for me increase and my plate is like kind of growing, I'm having to be much more intentional about carving out that time for me, because I was telling somebody today on the phone, and I'll move to the next point after this, but I was telling somebody on the phone today, I started my week doing something I wanted to do, but I believe self-care is also being responsible when you know you have other things going on. And so I wanted to go to the beach, and I went, but then I got home at 11 o'clock and I had to be at work at 4:30 in the morning, right? So then I start the vicious cycle, because now it's 4:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon, and it just keeps going and going and going. And before you know it, it's Wednesday, and I've gotten 4 hours of sleep each day, and I have all these things on my plate. And it's like, if you really love yourself, you have to be much more intentional about how you structure your time, right? Some things happen to us, but some things we have control of. And I believe sometimes we don't do the best job of taking the part that we really own and actually owning it. You know, we are a victim of our circumstances. What, Shantae? I see it all over her face.
Yes, it's so good. This is so good. Like, I get so excited, like listening to this and talking about it amongst other women, right? And like for me, the thing where I was like, sis, you ain't even have to do me like that, okay? When she said, what you have an appetite for, you'll make time for. And I can recall on days where I'm going back to back to back and be hungry, right? But don't have time to go get no food, but sis is gonna make time to go grab a little fry to hold me over, right? And so it's like, if you really want this thing that you say that you want, you're going to figure out how to do it. And a lot of times we put that on like our goals and these things that we can actually see, and we don't take that same thing and do it for us internally, right? So if you telling me you don't like what's happening in your life, okay, how bad is your appetite for that, right? Like how bad is the appetite to change? Because that is going to determine what you're going to see happen in your life. And so it just is like, how bad you want this, sis? And I was like, I hear you, girl.
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. So let's go to the screen. So tonight's conversation, let's talk about the first set of questions we have up. So she mentioned, Shantae, something about the inner court versus the outer court. And I didn't really know what that meant. You don't know? Okay. So I was trying to figure out if we had an idea as to what that could, does anyone on the call have an idea of what she means when she mentions the inner court versus the outer court? No? Okay. All right. So we'll keep going. I think we should. So that must have been episode 2 that she had, because she referenced on our last conversation, we talked about the inner court versus the outer court. So I figured somebody might have had an idea as to what that meant. So maybe we should go back and listen to episode 2 to figure out what that means. In my head, I'm kind of thinking about maybe people who like are in your close, like in your circle, versus those who are kind of on the exterior, just kind of using. Maria Vanessa's hand is up, so go ahead.
Somebody teaches now.
I was literally gonna say it when she was mentioning it. It sounded like that, inner circle and outer circle, and especially like in the second question, she did mention like you got to be careful on like who you let in your inner court and whatnot. So it did make me think of that, inner circles and outer circles, but I wasn't sure of the exact, I guess, definition of how she used it.
So that might reference like your sphere of influence. And so maybe it's those people who you allow in your inner circle who may have the ability to sway your opinions and thoughts or feelings on things. So that could be a good conversation too, because that is a separate issue perhaps.
Because you think about, I know in therapy for me is I look at who you're surrounding yourself with as a indicator of how you love yourself. Right. So, and if I would just throw like something in the dark on this one, I'm thinking, like you said, the inner court and the outer court, the circle, like who is in my inner circle and who are the people who are on the outside. The people who are in the inner circle are the people who can get to you the fastest, right? They can change your mood, they can push your buttons, they can hold you back. Those are those people. And so it's important to know like who you are surrounding yourself with, because that is a reflection of how you love yourself and how you perceive yourself. Because if I'm surrounding myself with nothing but toxic people, I don't think I'm worthy of the good people, or the healthy people, I should say, not good, the healthy people, the healthy relationships. And so it's super important to kind of evaluate your life and figure out like, who am I surrounding myself with? And does that reflect how I love myself?
I was going to go to another question, but since you're on that topic, I think that might be a good place for us to start, because I know many of us have relationships, some of which we've cultivated from childhood, that we have this loyalty to, right? And we maintain those relationships, although they might be toxic or truly unhealthy for us. And then we have relationships that we've cultivated as adults that I tend to think mirror more of who we are and who we've become. And then somewhere in between the two, you are trying to figure out what to hold on to and what to let go of. So can anyone, and this doesn't have to be Shantae, but would anyone like to weigh in if you've been in that space? How did you make the determination of which friends and relationships you were holding on to and which you were deciding to let go of?
That's a really good question.
And I'm gonna go back to the gallery view so I can see your faces.
Is it Evie or I can't remember how she did it now. I think it's Evie.
Evie.
Okay. Evie, then Felicia.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like as I grew and as I transformed, just realized that's a little way. As I grew and transformed, I noticed the way that people would respond to the ways that I was changing. And so the people who I feel like were in my corner, who are like, yes, like, I'm so excited to see you like growing, and they were like supporting me, like encouraging me. Those are the people who I knew, like, these are the folks that are in it for the long haul for me. And then there were some other people who, when I started setting boundaries and growing and changing in the same ways, their response was to get angry or to get defensive or like frustrated with me because I'm changing and now our relationship has to shift, and they weren't willing to do that. And so for those people, it was like, Godspeed on your journey. Like, our paths have diverged. It was like no hard feelings, necessarily, but also like, I need to move on, and like, this is the path I'm on and you're going in a different direction, and I honor your path, and you honor my path, and just Godspeed, and I've had to have that conversation with people a few times because I don't like ghosting people, but I really feel strongly about just letting them know, like, hey, this is what's going on, and this is where I'm headed, and it seems like our values aren't aligned, and so we're going to move forward in a different direction.
So did you actually?
Hey, Tiffany?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I have a comment in the section before you go to asking a follow-up question. And on YouTube, Rachel Glover wanted to add, she said, child, adding to this, blocking those who are not, in capital NOT, not appropriate to be in your inner court is a form of self-care.
So you know what? I would agree with Rashik not only, a lot of reasons why I agree with Rashik, but mainly because, your sphere of influence or your inner circle, if that's what it's referencing, it has so much weight in your life, right? Like, when great things happen, you call them. When you're going through difficult times, you call them. And so what would be worse than having someone in your inner circle or inner court who isn't really on your team? Ouch. Because then you have to question their intention every time they're giving you feedback on something or direction or guidance. It could just be a very uncomfortable situation to be in. So I could totally see wanting to disconnect from those relationships. Abby, so I heard you say that you kind of were like, Godspeed. Were you physically having the conversation and saying, look, we're just not on the same page, or were you kind of like fading to black and like it's just ghosting people?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I definitely just kind of did the fade out thing, or sometimes I would just like, this door slam where I just would stop talking to people. But now, but because that's happened to me and it has been really hurtful, I don't want to do that anymore. And so I have just taken the time to let people know, like, can we have a conversation about it? Sometimes it's in person if I can, but then there are those people, one of my things is like, if I keep trying to spend time with them and they keep canceling, that's an indication to me that they don't value the relationship. So there have been people that it's like, I tried to schedule the phone call or, a meeting with them in person. This is obviously pre-COVID. And I ended up just having to have a text message because it's like, I've been trying to meet with you for 2 months. You haven't honored my time. You keep canceling, but I need to tell you this. And so I'm just going to send a text or a voice message or something like that. To communicate it. So now I do communicate it because I feel like that's the way that I would want someone to end a relationship with me if that was appropriate.
Yes, I love it. Shantae, why did you clap?
Because y'all, that's when you got your big girl healing panties on, right? Like, because like communication is so key, and I always feel like, and I'm too like Evie. When I was younger, it was just I ain't got time. I don't have time to explain myself. I'm not trying to hear what you got to say, and I feel hurt. I'm done. Relationship over. But as you grow and those things start to happen to you, like that is painful for someone to cut you off and don't tell you why. Like that is a painful experience to go through, and so you feel that, and it's just like, now at the end of the day, I don't have to re-engage with you, but the least I can do is tell you where the breakdown was for our relationship, because someone probably has never told you. You don't know. You probably had broken friendships and you like, people just stop talking to me. Don't tell me why. And so if I can't offer any sound advice or just like, hey, this is what it felt like for me to this person in hopes that it can plant a seed or activate something within them that makes them want to be like, okay, you know what, my bad. Yeah, I need to work on that. But we don't give the people the opportunity because we're so quick to be like, deuces.
So like Shantae, mourning the loss of those relationships though, right? Let's talk about that for a second before I go. I see Maureen, I see Felicia's hands are up. So like, I've done that before, and I'm not gonna lie, there are some people who you just have this connection with. You know, like when you've grown up with a person or you've been through so many things with the person, right, wrong, or indifferent, you feel this connection to them. And you feel like a piece of who you are can only be uncovered by that person because they've seen you in so many different aspects of your life. And so there's a part of you that, you know, whether the relationship was unhealthy or not, you kind of mourn the loss of it.
Yeah.
Is it to our detriment to return to the relationship after you kind of had some time to cool off? And
it just depends on that relationship and the reason that you had to withdraw from it in the first place, right? Because some things could be a miscommunication. Some things could be one-off. This person is going through whatever in their life and it's projected on me during that situation or whatever that was. And so it's just like, you know, it depends on that relationship and that person. And don't re-engage without having a conversation about expectations and what I want this relationship to look like. We re-engage and we don't have a conversation about what we need to do differently so that this doesn't happen again. So then it happened again, and then you like, see, and it's like, I'm not gonna talk about it, you know. So we re-engage, make sure you have a clarifying conversation about what the issue was in the first place and what I need to do moving forward to hold myself accountable and say I could have done this better, and then what you can do moving forward so that this doesn't happen again and we don't find ourselves in this cycle.
I'm going to have to come back around to that accountability conversation because, I've been like, I have had people like come down on me and tell me everybody don't want to have accountability conversations. They just want to come back together and pretend like nothing happened and just move on. Yeah. And for me, it's like, I can't do that until we need to be on the same page, re-entering this agreement, this contract. So absolutely. I'm going to pause there and come back to that one. But Maureen's hand was up, Felicia, and then Jocelyn's hand is up as well.
I was going to say, like, I can't rush into having those conversations. I had to learn that the pause button may take longer for me than others, and I had to respect that about me. And I believe that it was a part of my self-love to know when I re-engaged that conversation, because I had to be out of my feelings and in logic and understanding to be able to set those new boundaries, to be able to identify that it's a possibility that they might not be ready to receive their end, but still hold myself accountable at the same time. And so I had to be in a healed place to even engage that conversation. And so sometimes, you know, you kind of play double dutch with it to see, okay, I think I'm ready. Oh no, the rope turning too fast. I ain't ready yet. So you got to be real with yourself. And I think that's a part of being, having self-love for yourself, to respect yourself enough to grow. Like, you may not be there yet. You may not be there, and that's okay. And so, like, in having friendships like that, what I learned is that, kind of like clothes, you know how like people say, if I haven't worn this in so long, then I can get rid of it. And like, I kind of look at that concept, like, if I've been living my life over this many times and it hasn't been a tug, like, I do know there are people that you know, you like, man, that girl, she know me though, like, she know me. But you gotta, again, make sure you give yourself time to grow. But some things you can spring clean and let it go, and you may not resurface then, but I still believe, like, at some point in your life that God will reconnect it, or open that opportunity for you to reconnect it, the timing that he has for you, versus you rushing into it because they say, oh, you got to reconcile or you got to do this. So that's how I feel.
I think that's key, right? Like, God's timing. And I don't know how many of us on the call are, you know, spiritual or religious, but for me, I found that when I do things out of order, they usually don't work the way they're supposed to. Conversely, when I'm intentional and I'm waiting and I'm saying, okay, you know what, I've gotten something has moved me to now try to move in that direction, I try it then. And generally I've had success. People are imperfect. So there are going to be times when we just have a way of messing up things because we're people and we're imperfect people, right? But with the best intent, trying to rekindle or reestablish a relationship. Felicia, your hand was up, and then we'll go to Jocelyn.
I kind of look at my friendships and my circles like this, because actually growing up or not growing up, but spending most of my teenage years in adulthood as a PK, you know, I've definitely learned about the inner and outer court in regards to religious and biblical terms, because you have the outer court where you find most people, you know, people who still struggle with their Christianity, you know, the ones like my daddy always say, oh, God knows my heart, you know, he know I mean this, you know, that. And then you have the inner court where you find the, you know, the ones that are really holy, following the Bible, following everything. And so I pretty much look at my friendships like that. Most people are going to be in that outer court, and that's okay. Once you show me who you are, and I don't have to sit here and try to repaint that picture that you've shown me and put in front of me, then you can move into my inner court. And usually once you're in my inner court, I don't have to worry about you going back to the outer court or just falling off in general, because you've shown me who you are. We can have that conversation if we hurt each other. You can, if you see me falling off, you can get in my butt and let me know, like, hey, what you doing snacking? Ain't you trying to lose weight? You know, you can get on me and let me know, hey, I'm your friend, this is at the third. And if I feel as if I can't talk to you like that, or you can't talk to me and we can't hold each other accountable, you would never be in my inner circle. I mean, it's plenty of people that I grew up with, I've been friends with since the 5th grade. And me and this particular person, we're no longer friends. It's not because, you know, of any animosity or anything negative. It's just that we grew apart, and that's okay, because at the end of the day, she still want to do things like we still. I'm from Decatur, but I'm in Dunwoody now. I you know, I enjoy, you know, wanting to socialize and network and do certain things, and she's not on that level, which is okay. That's her, and I have no problem with that. But once I realized my liabilities and my assets, I had to move accordingly. And at the end of the day, I can't have anybody in my life that's going to be considered a liability, because I know I have things I want to do and things I want to accomplish. Now, did I verbalize that to her? Now, I kind of faded to black, but you know, if anything happens, you know, if I see something where she's in trouble or anything like that, I'm going to come to her rescue, because at the end of the day, I do still love her. I still have love for her. I just know I can't deal with her in a certain way. But when you're in my inner circle, that's it. And me personally, I know some people say, you know, communicate, you should tell everybody. Homegirl, you might tell me I'm wrong, I don't know. Like, once I say no, that's it. I don't owe you an explanation. I feel like if I just say no to this, I shouldn't have to tell you no because of this. Once I say no, it's period. So I don't know if that's just, I don't know if it's wrong or not, or if I still need to grow in that area.
If I look growing to do, girl. There's a little room for growth opportunity right there.
But you know, I just look at it, at least for me in my situation, because I've always given a no and then a ... afterwards. And then, you know, it's always been used against me and try to be spun around and manipulated, and then I fall back into relationships that I don't need to be in, when I should have just left it at no with no explanation, and I wouldn't have to deal with that no more. Because, you know, everybody, you know, God bring people in your life is either for a lesson or a blessing. And then sometimes God just want to test you to see how stupid you're going to be. That's how I look at it sometimes. And so, you know, I have to realize, is God bringing this person back into my life to see if I'm going to fail this test, or like what's really going on? So I that's why a lot of times, if I truly indeed like cut you off, I just leave it at that no period.
No period. That's the line for today. No period. That's it, guys. That's all. No.
And moving on.
Jocelyn, you're in. What's up?
So for me, I never learned how to develop and end relationships or friendships, because when I was in elementary school, I've shared this before, we moved. I went to like 5 or 6 different elementary schools. So my moving was always like an abrupt end to friendships, and that was way before the days of cell phones and all that kind of stuff, where we can still keep our in touch with one. My grandmother is trying to chime in. Y'all have to forgive her.
That's okay. I would love to hear Grandma's commentary. Tell Grandma to come on and talk to us.
She's actually been listening to the whole time, and she's enjoyed herself.
Oh, good.
But and I think that actually was like the prerequisite to how I handle relationships as an adult. The way that I've always handled them, I've never switched to being like, well, you know, hey, this is not working out. And that's even been reflected in like romantic relationships. It's like, I think Eb and I both said the same thing. I just fade to black. It's like one day I'm your boo, and the next day you can't get in touch with me. My phone number changed. I mean, like everything, because seriously, like Felicia said, when I say no and I'm done, I just walk away. But it is hurtful when someone does it to me, and I didn't even think about that until I think Shantae may have said that. And I was like, oh God, yeah, I do feel sort of, slighted when somebody else does it to me, but I've never thought about being on the receiving end, or if me doing it to somebody else rather. So this has made me also think about the inner court and external court. I think that by default, because I never learned how to develop the relationships nor cut them off. Everybody stays on my outer court. I don't let them inside. Like, you could be my friend since I have known you from elementary school, you're outside, because what I've done to guard myself is keep you out there, because I knew that I was going to move. So why get close to you when, at the end of the school year, I may not be here, and then I have to forge, new friendships someplace else, and then I have to abruptly end that relationship too. So this right here has really made me open up my eyes to a lot of stuff. I say, I feel like I'm a bad friend, because there are some people who I genuinely know that I'm in their inner circle, but I haven't made them in my inner circle, even though I value them probably on the same level that they value me, but I won't let them in. When,
I would tell you that cultivating a relationship with a person who loves authentically, you would probably end up losing that relationship, because I've had friends or people I've tried to develop relationships with who are guarded because they've been through a lot of things prior to me. And I understand it, right? Because when you've been traumatized by something, it kind of causes you to have this fear. But if I am authentic and I come to you and I don't ever give you a reason to doubt my intention, and you're constantly questioning my intent because of what you've been through, eventually it gets to a place where it's just kind of like, it's not worth the energy for me to keep trying to get through this barricade to prove to you that I am who I say I am. So I just do one of these numbers and then I fade to black. That's the conversation I don't really have because I feel like having that conversation it'd be too laborsome, because I have to help you to understand that you're too guarded, and to help you to understand that it's too much, and that's above my pay grade. That's how we have Shantae here. So.
And the rebuttal to that for me is sometimes we don't realize we're guarded. Because for me, I don't oftentimes realize that I'm guarded. I'm just functioning in that dysfunctional state of mind that I've been in, because that's been my norm. And so now I'm on the opposite end, where I'm learning that my guard is up, that I'm not doing the appropriate friend thing, and when they're giving me all of them and being authentic, that I'm really not doing the same thing, and I'm not receiving them the way that I should.
Shantae, you were about to say?
So I was saying in the chat, like, this is where self-awareness comes in.
Oh, you're muted. I didn't do it. Now, I have a tendency to do that sometimes.
This is where self-awareness comes into place, right? Because I think Felicia said it, like, she had a history of having those conversations and falling back into those relationships, right? And so you have to be aware of who you are and knowing your behavior patterns to decide whether or not you need to have that conversation with the person. I can tell you all day long, like, communicate, all of that, but only you know that relationship. And I think Ebony said it in the chat, there are some times where that person can be toxic and can be abusive, and like, there's no need for me to have a conversation with you. I'm a fade to black, and I understand that, right? And so this is where you have to have the awareness within yourself to know, like, nah, sis, because the last time I did that, I fell back into that cycle, and here we are again, right? And so it's just, you needed to know you, so you'll know what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Right.
Example of what it looked like. So Dr. Thema said, one of the reasons we don't care for ourselves is that we don't believe we are worthy. Okay, that was like, I had to sit in that one for a second. Followed by her comment on African-American women rating themselves really high as it relates to self-esteem. So somebody asks you how you feel about yourself and you say, oh, I'm amazing, I'm this, I'm that. But in real life, you don't really feel that way about yourself. But she said, culturally, we're taught to not expose our weaknesses. And even though we are trying to disguise them under the guise of self-love, a person can see how much you really care about yourself based on the decisions you make in your life on a daily basis. So I wanted to ask if anybody could tell me about a time, and this sounds like a job interview, right? Like a star interview. Tell me about a time when you minimize yourself and your voice with the hope of receiving approval, validation, or attention from someone who required you to be something you were not. That's a good question, right, y'all? Hold on, I did that myself. Just want to give myself a little credit.
Yeah, give yourself that love, girl. Give yourself a pat on the back.
I'll repeat it. Tell me about a time when you minimize yourself or your voice with the hope of receiving approval, validation, or attention from someone who required you to be something you were not. What was the situation? How did you handle it? And what was the outcome? And it can be romantic, professional, or it could be a personal example. And so I'm going to come back on the screen so I can see your faces as you're talking to me. Yes. Let's see. There we go. Back on the computer screen. And I saw Maureen's hand go up first. So I'm going to call on Maureen, and then I'm just going to start calling on people randomly. Because see, I know that you all have some examples. I'm going to ask my daughter. I'm going to ask Lauren. I'm going to call on some folks in a second. So Maureen, you can go first.
I was going to say, mine would be with work. I would be considered argumentative, right? And there was one particular time where I would defend myself because I knew what was happening was wrong. And then I had a friend to tell me, that's not how God would want you to do it. Like, you always debating and you're so angry. And then I felt like it made me like check my, like, am I being angry? Like, am I wrong? Like, what was going on? And I, at one point, I felt like maybe she right, you know? And I had to call somebody else, like, to give them the situation to see like what was going on. Because at that point I was like, I don't want to be, and even though I felt wrong, like even though I felt that I was wronged, it made me question, like, maybe I'm being argumentative. It took, of course, out, like, fast forward out the situation, is that, you know, standing up for your rights, you are looked at as someone who is argumentative, because everything doesn't need to, isn't right, long story short. But what I learned was everything doesn't need an argument. Like, fight the stuff that matters and leave the other stuff behind. And so that's what I learned from. So it did require accountability from me. And it also required me to choose my battles wisely. And though what she said came out wrong, there was some recyclables in what she said, whereas the other part was trash. So,
I want to ask you a question, because we talk a lot about emotional intelligence, right? So if you're anything like I was, because I was, oh my God, I argued every point growing up. And my mom would always say, choose your battles, right? And I used to be like, well, how do I know which battles to choose? So I chose them all until I started to cultivate emotional intelligence, and I was flat out exhausted from fighting all the fights, right? So in that situation, how did you determine when to speak up and when to step down?
In all honesty, when I asked a neutral party and I gave them facts of what happened, and they were able to dissect it from a place that they weren't involved in a situation, and they allowed me to see my part as well as the other part, and then I was able to come to a conclusion that, okay, I have to dissect every situation the correct way, and I'm still dealing with it. My emotional intelligence has, you know, raised the bar, but I'm still dealing with it. And God knew that I needed to still deal with it, to where he gave me a husband that checks me like, I don't care about how you feel. Tell me what really matters. And so now I have to take my part of it. And that's when I learned. And of course, coming to Virtual Connection has, you know, has slapped me in my face a couple of times. You know, just a little check punch every so often with you and Shantae and the ladies, you know. And I have to take my part, deal with my part, and let God do the rest, because I can't, it's exhausting trying to do that part.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like there was a little bit of, you were a little complicit in allowing someone to force you to sit on your wings, right? So she used that phrase in the podcast. And when the moment someone tells you that you're something that you're not, and you start saying, well, am I that thing? Am I this person? You just become complicit.
Yeah.
And now buying into the lies they're telling you about yourself.
Yeah.
And now you have to do some work to undo
That.
that belief, right? I'm going to call on my daughter, Alani. Can you tell us about a situation where, and I'm sorry to put you on blast, I shouldn't have said your name, but can you tell us about a time where you feel like you have been, well, what's the question exactly? Did you hear the question before? Or do I need to
Hold on.
repeat it?
I just wanted to let you know that we're over here commenting amongst ourselves, but like we're not like talking on, but we're having a whole conversation about what's going on right now. It's just okay. Yeah, I heard what you said, but I was trying to think of an example and I really can't think of one because I don't know. It's hard for me to like.
I kind of have one. So with a friend, every time I would express my feelings about a situation, they would say that I'm being emotional about it. And I don't feel like I'm an emotional person. So the fact that they kept telling me that over and over, every time I'm telling them, like when I have a problem with something, it made me question myself, and it made me ask my friends. I asked my friend, like, am I emotional? Like, how do I react to certain things? So I feel like that was a time where I had to like actually look at myself and think and be like, no, I'm not emotional. So it's not me, it's them. They're crazy.
That's a great example. Now I want to ask you, did that reaction from that friend cause you to stop going to them and call them out on their behavior?
Yes, it made me feel like I couldn't express the way I felt with them. It did make me feel like that. So yeah.
Now, Shantae, I'm not a therapist. I'm going to pass this to you, but all I'm going to say is in my head, what I'm seeing, like, so when you have a situation with someone where they're suppressing your voice and your thoughts are not allowed to be heard, and then because of the way they respond to you, it causes you to quiet down even more. It almost seems as though they take control of that relationship, and then it leaves you in a position where you're like kind of just floating. You're just kind of existing. You're in autopilot because you can't actively really engage in a relationship because it's confrontational, combative, it's problematic for you to have an opinion about the things that you're experiencing. What's that? Am I right? Am I wrong? Like, what's the?
No, that absolutely happens. And that's where you don't, right? You don't engage with that person because that's considered, that's just toxic, right? Mm-hmm. Like if we're friends or we're in a relationship with one another and I can't come to you and share my emotions or my feelings and you minimize and you tell me what they are not, that is something where you have to decide whether or not you need to continue in that relationship with that person until you get to a place, because there are some times where we have people who just ain't for us and they not trying to hear whatever. But when we are healed and we are at a place where we are completely in love with ourselves, like those things wouldn't matter. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. You know, like it would matter, but it wouldn't take me down. Right? When I'm broken or when I feel like I'm in the midst of like chaos and I'm really trying to discover myself, every little thing that comes my way is going to be a trigger. Because I don't know, right? I'm still, it's like you're doing this in real time. So I'm healing in real time while things are happening. And so you have to know when to just say, bow out. This ain't for me.
That's such a hard thing to do.
Why?
Because, okay, so like, I'm just going to give this example, like, and I won't say who the person is, but there's someone I'm related to who, like, I can have my thoughts and feelings. And when I express them, I'm told very often, you're too sensitive. You're way too sensitive. You need to stop being so sensitive about things. And then another thing is they will over talk me to make me quiet down my voice. And then it gets to this weird place where it's just like, because I care about the relationship, I'll just like, you know what, whatever, that's fine. But low key, I'm really angry about the fact that I've had to be quiet and sit here and listen to this, but I care more about preserving the relationship. And so I feel like I'm complicit to my own abuse. Like at that point, I'm the person, like I'm responsible for how I'm being treated because I could just walk away, but I don't really want to walk away because I just want you to fix how you're behaving.
Sis said that, she said that, and it's pronounced, her name is Dr. Tama.
Oh, Tama, I'm sorry.
Tama, I just wrote it in my notes and I just synced it and I was like, oh yeah, I remember to say that. Anyway, but it's like she said it, we create the stress. We create the issues in our lives because we are caring about the other person more than we care about ourselves. And that deems that we are not worthy of ourselves. And so until we get to that, it's going to be hard to manage all of this, all these relationships, until you can manage yourself, until you can sit with yourself and love yourself. And it's like, why don't we feel like we're worthy of removing ourselves from things that harm us? Because those little wounds turn to big triggers, and then we are sitting here trying to figure out life 5 years later because we stuck in this same cycle because we refuse to remove ourselves in fear that it's gonna hurt the other person's feelings. And the thing is, they don't care about yours.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care. If they cared, they wouldn't do it. Is she froze? Am I froze? Am I still here?
No, you're not froze. I can still hear you.
Okay. But
I was like, no, you're doing good. But we got 2 hands raised, so I can't, I don't know what happened to her. But
I don't know what happened
so
to
Eb, you got your hand raised? Go for it.
I didn't have my hand raised to say anything. I just wanted to let y'all know that Stephanie's been trying to raise her hand.
Oh,
so
okay.
Y'all can see her. She keep going like this, and I'm like, I don't know if they can see you, girl.
Yeah, we look, Stephanie, let me help you out. So, because I was like, it's a lot of ladies out here. If you go into the participation and do raise hand, it'll turn blue and it'll let us know.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry about that. So
no, you're fine. No, I was just gonna say, Tiffany, what you were saying is absolutely 100% true. I think that people use that tactic as it's a manipulative tactic, right? To kind of, like you said, bring you down, suppress you and your statement, and it devalues what we have to say and what our opinions are. And for me, I was gonna mention that, like, I was in a relationship where unfortunately I had to suppress a lot of my own feelings just to accommodate that person.
Yeah.
And so I would find myself, not doing the things I want to do because, oh, it's about that individual, and making sure that everything is okay with them. And, because I don't want them to get mad. I don't want them to get upset. Now I can't maybe spend as much time with my family like I want to, or be able to go out to hang out with some friends like I want to, because now I'm putting that person first as opposed to putting myself. And in doing so often, time after time, you change. And my family saw a true change in me. And I had to realize, like, yeah, it's not about them. Like, my happiness counts. I am worthy of being happy myself too. It's not just about that other individual all the time.
Yeah.
So it is a hard decision to make, but once you are able to make that shift and put yourself first and think about what is it that makes you happy. Once I started having that conversation within myself, it helped me realize how unhappy I was within that moment. And then it gave me strength to, like, change it. It wasn't easy, but then it gave me strength to change it. And we have to extend grace towards ourselves. Like, it's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to be unsure of things. It's okay to not know where you're gonna go from it. Like Shantae was saying, you're making these decisions in real time within that moment, and you're learning for yourself. It's like retraining yourself, right? So we have to extend ourselves some grace to make mistakes and not be sure of things, be a little uncertain, and figuring it out on the way. That's fine. Yeah, I'm okay with not knowing. Even though I'm a control freak, and sometimes, like, I need to know.
right. And I think we all we all have that issue, right, of feeling like we need to be in control over everything. One of the things too, though, hey girl, hey, she's back. One of the things I wanted to say that Stephanie had said was, I think a lot of times we try to feel the other person's feelings for them, right? And so the thing I tell myself when I am fearful of having a conversation with someone because I'm gonna hurt their feelings is, one, is it worth me dismissing my feelings? Is it worth me dismissing myself to sacrifice myself to make sure that they feel good? No, I don't think it's worth that, because what we do is we start to train ourselves. We do that for so long in our lives. We train ourselves to dismiss ourselves. We train ourselves to dismiss these emotions and these feelings because we are fearful of what someone else is gonna feel. I respect you enough, partner, to be an adult and to be able to handle your own feelings within yourself, right? I don't have nothing to do with that, okay? I feel like you've learned about emotions just like everybody else, and you have some things in healing that you have to work through, but I can't minimize me in hopes that you're gonna continue to feel good. And we do that, we get tripped up on that. And the thing is, we have to unlearn a lot of these behaviors. And that's why we got to show ourselves grace. Do you know? I don't know how, listen, how old am I? 33. I had to unlearn about 25 years of things that has been instilled in me, all while living life presently. That is a lot, right? And so it's like, show yourself some grace, because there are a lot of self-help books, there are a lot of things and all this stuff, but until you are able to sit with yourself and walk through life and experience these things, you're never going to know. And so show yourself some grace, because while we're unlearning, we are also learning things that are uncomfortable to us, that are foreign. The stuff, it just does not feel good. Forgive? What? Like that doesn't feel good, but it's necessary. Hey T girl, I'm glad you back.
Listen, I had to sacrifice for the greater good of the group, because I got a message that said something about there was some unsecure network connection and somebody might be trying to get into the call via Zoom. Like a little notification came up, so I was like, take me, let them go, you know. So.
Look, we all concerned. Everybody's like, Tiff. I was like, y'all keep going.
We've been down that road before, but you ladies recovered like a champ. So thank you for just running with it, and I'll let you keep going. I'll step back.
No, so we was on to the next question. I didn't think I seen any more hands up from your last question, unless anybody.
No, there was a hand up, but she put it down. Sonia, or maybe I say her name right, Sonia.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I mean, it's been a very interesting conversation, but one of the things I really wanted to say was life, you know, I think I'm a lot older than most of you there. Life, as you go through it, is really not always so black and white. And yes, you're always going to meet up with people that are very strong, they have strong egos, you know, they always want to have the last word in the conversation. But I think what happens is as you go through life and you develop, you know, you get to a certain level of, I'm not sure if the right word is of maturity, but life experiences that teach you. You actually, when you're dealing with people like that, and often these people are in your own family, you are the one that actually, you do take control. It's very, very difficult just to, you know, because some individuals can be overbearing. If these are people that are in your family, it's very, very difficult to just cut them off because you can't have your voice. And so at some point, you actually become the one that's smarter than them because you understand that, okay, when I speak to this person, I'm going to try and I'm going to hope that the conversation doesn't go in a particular direction, but inevitably it will. And you as an individual have to learn how to exit that conversation while still showing the person love, because you know, as much as we want people to be exactly as we want them to be, you know, in order to love them wholly, individuals come to us or they're in our lives and no one is perfect. And so, you know, it's a question of, yes, you want to have your voice, but, you know, we also have to understand that people and often their core beings are not going to change. Especially if they're older people, because they have habits which have been learned from years back. And so therefore it's down to us as people, as individuals who are much younger and understand how they have those learned behaviors, to act in a different way that manages the feelings that are around us. So I think what I'm trying to say is that we're always going to cross paths with people that we don't necessarily agree with, that don't necessarily treat us in a manner that we would like to be treated in. But we have to understand that part of life's journey is learning how to deal with those type of people and learning how and when to step back, but still giving them love. That's it for me.
I love that so much. I love it so much for so many reasons. I think in those situations, to your point, because that it kind of ties in line with my example earlier where I said the person who I'm referencing is somebody in my family who I love dearly. And because I want to maintain that relationship with this person, I have to accept this is who they are and this is how they engage, right? It makes me question my own healing and my own self-love sometimes though, because when I am around this person, I'm easily triggered. And then once they trigger me, I end up retreating back 5 years, it seems, in my healing because I meet them like after so much time, we're here. And now we're both being explosive and it's very volatile. It's a volatile situation. And I have to ask myself, like, are you really healed? Because you're still very reactive when it comes to dealing with this person. And because I've recognized that, I've been very intentional about telling myself, I can't have a large number of people like that in my life. So it's like, if I'm going to dedicate my time to trying to be in this relationship and show up and have the capacity for this person, there is absolutely no way I'm going to have capacity for him or her and 5 more of him or her, because that would be it'd be torment.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready.
So I got some comments about you guys on YouTube, so I want to share with you guys
Hold on
again.
1 second, Rika, before you share it. Wait, before you share it, Sonia was gonna jump back in real quick. I want to hear her.
Go ahead, Sonia.
I'm sorry. I think it's learning how to take or handle people like that in small dosages, and learning, you know, you still have to have them in your life. I mean, you know, families are made up of all different types of people. So you still have to have them in your life, but it's a question of priorities and how you apportion your time with such individuals. Because here's the other thing. If anything was to happen to that person that kind of literally squashes you down whenever you're trying to have a conversation with them, you'd probably be the first person to be at their side. I mean, just because some people are not able to communicate in the way that you would like them to communicate, it doesn't take away your unconditional love for them. And I think that's the thing that many of us have to remember, you know, as we go forward. So
yes. Rika, you have some comments from YouTube and
YouTube, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry guys, I'm over here multitasking.
Hey, I love it.
So Miss Glover, she actually said to Shantae when we were talking about showing grace, she said, so this is interesting because I typically don't need a lot of emotional support from others. I process most stuff alone, me too. But when I do need it, I expect those to come close to me to offer it. More often than not, I have attracted romantic relationship with people who are who are emotionally unavailable. And Mitra, I'm apologize if I say your name wrong. She says, unfortunately, we're more willing to show grace to others rather than ourselves. We're our own worst critics.
That part. That first question was long and I got lost somewhere in the middle. What? Yeah.
So what I think that person was saying was, you know, there's someone who kind of just self-processes, so they don't really rely on people, but it almost sounds like the reason they don't, and I might be diagnosing before I really listen to the full problem, but she mentioned that she finds herself in relationships with people who are not available to help her process things when she's looking for that companionship. So it's almost like I'm kind of off by myself processing it, but when I need somebody, they're not there. So it almost seems like you've developed this habit of processing it on your own because you can't rely on it. You haven't been able to rely on the people who have been placed around you.
And I would say, do they know they need to be there? So this goes back to you holding yourself accountable, right? So a lot of times we are, so like for me, my husband is a self-processor. Like he processes everything internally, and I know he's going through something because of how he's acting, right? And so I don't know that he needs my help unless he tells me that, hey, I'm processing some things and I don't really know what I need to do, and I just need you to be here for me, right? So a lot of times we play things out in our head. We have this narrative and we think that we are asking for help. We think we are showing signs of distress. We think this person should know us enough to know that you need help just by me looking at you. But it's like, well, no, are you requesting help? And are you saying it clearly and saying how you need the help? So sometimes when I'm processing, I don't need you to come and solve it. I just need to get it out. I need to vent, right? I just need that. And so if I don't open my mouth and verbally say, hey, I'm going through something right now and I'm a little emotionally overwhelmed and I just need you to be here. Whether I tell my husband all the time, I just need a hug. I just need a hug. Right? Like I ain't got time to explain. I just need a hug. You know? And he like, okay, good, come on, you know. And it's just, so it's just like you have to be in a place to verbalize that you need the help, right? And don't expect someone to just know. They don't. No one's a mind reader, right? Like we don't know. And so you have to be clear with yourself and ask yourself, like, am I even asking for help? Like, does this person know that I'm waving a flag saying, help me? Probably not, because you're processing it on your own and you always have.
So I was going to ask a question. That was one of the questions on my slide.
Oh, I was going to say, someone just gave me a question.
Well, let's go to that question. And before you go to that question, I was going to ask, how do we ask for help when we struggle with feeling vulnerable? Like there are so many times this week, particularly, people have been like, what you got going on? I'm like, I'm drowning. I got this. And one person said, what can I take off your plate? And I don't think I was ready for that question. And then immediately I was like, well, I don't really want to put this on them. So I'd rather sit here and like drown, right? But I'm like, I don't want to put this on them and I can't figure, but like maybe, and I'm making up all these reasons in my head. And then there's this part of me that didn't want to feel like almost vulnerable, like weak, like I can't do it, you know? And so it was like, it's this weird thing. So how do you, and anybody on the call can answer this, but how have you managed to ask for help when you need it without allowing yourself to feel weakened by a basic request that we should all be able to evoke when necessary?
And before someone else answers, I will say, because that was one of your questions on your thing was, I forgot it. But what I will say is you have to identify why do you see that as weakness? Like, let's explore that, right? Because here's the thing. At some point, and I told y'all this is like, we keep it real, you know? Some point we have to get over ourselves, right? For asking, like you have to, it has nothing to do with anyone else. Why do I feel like asking for help is weak? If I never explore why I see that as weakness, asking for help is gonna always seem weak to me, and I'm never gonna do it.
Guess what I was about to do just then?
What?
I was about to mute you.
You
I felt those
petty.
missiles. I felt those missiles coming at me.
I'm so listen. I just try to keep it real. Like, we at this place, like, we talked about the cute stuff early on in virtual connections. Now we gotta get under these layers, right? And so and honestly, this is a part of self-care. This is a part of self-love, is exploring the things that you feel like are wrong and asking yourself why, right? Because that's why I'm not asking for help, because I think vulnerability is weakness. Or I feel like if I ask for help, that person gonna be like, sis, you got everything else, you ain't got that, you can't do that. Okay.
Abby, I saw your hand up. I'm gonna go.
Love you.
I was gonna say that one thing that I've learned is that independence is a myth, that it doesn't actually exist, that humans are an interdependent, group of people. And even things from as simple as like what we ate for dinner, like, someone had to like plant the seed of whatever vegetable it was and like farm the animal, and there's like hundreds of people involved in doing something. Like I had chicken salad for dinner, and so even the concept of independence is a myth, but in our culture we're taught that independence is a value and that we have to like do everything on our own, even though literally no one does that. And so once I realized that, it became a lot easier for me to ask for help, because I realized I was just like, it was an act of courage for me to say, I am not independent. Like no one is actually independent. And if people say that, they're lying. Even, for folks who, if they appear independent, like if they're incredibly wealthy, it's like they're paying people to do the things that maybe we're doing for ourselves. They're not actually independent. So yeah, that was a really powerful reframe for me. And it made asking for help so much easier, because then I was just like, I'm just being honest and being transparent and letting people know, like, I need some assistance, and then also like being willing to show up for other folks when they are being vulnerable and courageous and asking for help. And just in some ways it was really liberating to finally have that realization.
I love that so much. And so now that's going to be like in my head for the week. Independence is a myth. Like that one sentence, I feel like it just shifted so many things for me in my head as it relates to how I process that whole concept.
So thank you. But I'm gonna think about why you feel like vulnerability is a weakness, asking for help. Like,
okay, so you know what?
That's not. We gonna do both. We ain't gonna do one or the other this week.
This is my long lost friend, Shantae, right now. Okay, lost. I'll give you an example of why it makes me feel weak. So, y'all know I started a job 3 weeks ago, and love the company, love what I'm doing. The first 3 weeks have been training and onboarding. And so I've been required to ask a lot of questions and ask for help. And on 3 separate occasions when I've asked for help, people flat out did not help me, right? And there's this part of me, it triggered, and I was telling Maureen about it, I think on a call the other night. It triggered times in my life when I've been wanting to do good and I've been seeking assistance and I've been trying to learn something, and I would ask people to help me and they wouldn't help me, and I felt completely vulnerable. And then I had to scratch and claw and figure it out on my own and figure out the workaround. And I managed to do it. And I did it because I felt like I'm not going to allow your lack of assistance to cripple me or to handicap me and keep me from doing something I want to do. And so now it just feels very much like, and maybe it's my own trauma I have to work through, but it feels like whenever I'm asking someone to help me, I'm putting my ability to move forward in their hands. And then when they tell me no, it shuts me down and it keeps me from being able to do something. And so, it's a pride thing, I guess. It's a pride thing that I'm working through, because there were people who were willing to assist me, but somehow the ones who didn't help seem to stand out more than the people who You know, and it's a weird thing how that happens, but like the few that stepped in and were like, you know, let's sit down, I got you, we're gonna figure this out. I forgot about them by the next day. And I was still focused on the folks who didn't want to help me when I asked for the assistance. And it's so weird.
And that's the part that we have to think about too. We are so easy. It's easy for us to only see the negative, or the people who not rooting for us, and the people who not buying our journals and coming to our events. It's so easy to see that. And you still got 19,000 other people who are there, but you talking about this one person, right? But the other thing I was gonna say is, as we grow in our healing or grow in ourselves, we will be able to identify who we can ask help from. We've been asking help from the wrong people the whole time, right? Because we ain't good with us. But when you get to a point where you like, okay, I have the emotional intelligence, and I'm aware of like what I need, and I can see this in certain people, so I know now who to go to. I'm not gonna go to Billy Bob over here, because Billy Bob over here is not the person for me, right? And so it all circles back to like you, and you finding that within yourself, so you'll be able to filter out the stuff that's not good for you. I'm gonna see it a mile away, because I've seen it before.
No, like so when I first started, I didn't know who would.
Right.
Because I'm like, she's a new hire, so surely y'all gonna be excited about helping me.
Right. and then that goes back to, maybe there is something in your healing journey that you are blind to, right? That you need to reveal, so that you'll know, like, okay, these people, it's just these people who don't want to help me, but I'm gonna find somebody who's gonna help me. So I'm not even gonna hold it against myself, like, oh, I feel, no, it was just y'all just didn't want to help a sister, but I'm gonna go find that one person who I know wants to help me, right? And so it's just, when you are in that place where you're completely happy, not even, you're whole, no one can tell you anything, right? Like, you are going to persevere, you're going to be resilient regardless. And the people who tell you no, it's no sweat off your back. And that's the part of being like, to heal, right? Because we're gonna be faced with difficult people. It's gonna happen, right? But what we don't want to happen, or to continue to happen, is that we're faced with these difficult people. They say something to us, and now we pull back 10 years. Nah, right? Like, now I gotta do this all over again. Yep. And so you get to a place where you're whole, you're not gonna pull me back, and that's gonna hurt my feelings, it's gonna whatever. But next day I'm up and running like, we good. Because I've worked through that. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
I see 4 hands up. I will say this. They had us sit down, right? They got me the first day. Because what I noticed I did, and I told my husband, I said, I'm glad this is bringing out some things about me that I didn't realize I did. But when I felt down, I went in the office, and I just started working on online training. And I was like, I'm just not going to do it. And it was almost like, fine, since you won't play with me, I'm going to leave the playground. It's almost what it was like, right? I mean, like, in my head. And I said, I had a whole temper tantrum at work. I mean, it was with myself, like nobody else noticed it. But I said, no, Tiff, get it together. And so I love that self-awareness about myself, because I caught myself, and the next day I came back and I was like, so you're not gonna help me? Cool, I'm gonna ask this person. And this person ended up helping me. But I was still low-key side-eyeing the person that didn't want to help me. All right, Lonnie, your hand is up, and then we're gonna go to Felicia, and then we'll go to Maureen, and then Jocelyn.
Okay, what I was gonna say was that, like, emotionally, I don't know if it's just me, but I don't necessarily feel like asking for help makes me feel weak. But sometimes I just be feeling like, if I ask for help, can y'all really help me? Like, emotionally, like, I don't know how to explain that, but yeah. So I think sometimes it's just me feeling that way.
I feel like with you, a lot of times you have to just work through it. Like, you're someone who, and I'm only opining because this is my child, but I think with her, a lot of times, Lonnie, you like to talk through it. So like when Shantae was saying, you just need somebody to listen and hug you. Like, emotionally, you'll feel inundated or overwhelmed, but you don't really want anybody to figure it out for you. You want to figure it out on your own. And that might be a bad habit that I passed down to you. I'm not 100% sure. But what I love is that you want to talk about it, and you're open, and you're willing to say, like, I'm struggling right now, and I just got to figure this out. But then you keep pushing through. So I love that part about you. If I ever taught you, and I'm going to say it on record, if I ever taught you to not ask for help, that was a bad thing for me to teach you. And don't do that. Don't keep doing it. Ask for help.
Now I'm quick to say I need to talk to a therapist, baby, because
Yes, ma'am.
She did say, I need to find me a therapist when we get to Georgia. All right, Felicia, go ahead.
I'll say this. I don't know if it stems from how I was raised, but my dad always taught me, don't let your pride have you homeless or hungry. And he meant that literally and figuratively. And so I've always been the type of person where I felt like if I really truly can't do it for myself, I'm going to ask for help because I'm not going to be out here hungry when I really need help. And I look at it as if you decide not to help me, okay, that's fine. Somebody else is going to help me. If that person don't help me, I'm just going to try to figure out, who can help me or try to figure it out on my own. And then at the same time, I have to ask myself, okay, this person may not, have malicious intent when they don't want to help me. I have to ask myself, can that person really help me? Or sometimes that person I already know in their mind or whatever, they know for a fact that they can't help me. So they're not being mean. They just know that they can't offer the help that I need, whether it's physically or emotionally. And so sometimes I have to step back and look at the situation like, okay, I can't be mad because this person may not know the answer to what I need. And so at the same time, I look at it too, like, that same person may ask me for help. I'm not going to be evil. If I can help them, I'm going to help them because at the end of the day, I'm not going to block my blessings because you decide to be ugly or whatever the situation may be if you didn't help me. But, I've always looked at it as a strength of mine, as being able to actually open up and ask for help because I guess, at least at my house, that's how we were raised. Don't sit here and be out there starving when you could have opened your mouth and said something. The Bible says, asking thou shalt receive. So it's like, how can you expect to receive or anything, whether you're looking for a spiritual gift or whether you're looking for emotional pouring or anything, if you don't ask for it or at least try to find some type of tool to assist you in asking for it? Because you never know. You may think that person may say no, but that person could be dying inside for somebody to ask them for help. So I get it.
I want to real quick. I know I said I was going to go to Maureen next and then go to Jocelyn. Ola said something in the comments to me that I thought was something that we all needed to hear. Ola, can I ask you to expound on that? You were talking about asking for help, how it goes against us having to be twice as good.
Yeah, so I don't know how many of you have heard the saying, you have to be twice as good when you show up, not only as a woman, but as a Black woman or as a woman of color, right? So when you go into these spaces and you're supposed to be twice as good, you're supposed to be on your stuff, someone across the hall can ask for help and show up and just, hey, I need help. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to navigate these spaces. Sometimes you feel as though you can't show up that way because you're supposed to be your best self. So I can't show weakness. I can't let them know I don't know this. I can't show them that I'm unable to do something. So you go off on your own and you try to figure it out yourself. And then from there, it just, I don't know, it piles on. Either you're going to get it, you're going to figure it out by yourself, or you're going to drown. So, yeah.
And you just explained the last 13 years of my corporate existence. Yep. No, I'm serious, right? Because that's what happens. So you're in the same room, but people are already giving you the side eye, like, how did you get in here? So dare not ask for help. That's another part of it too. It's layered, but it's still incumbent upon us to not, we have to not assume the responsibility for their assumptions. I feel like I've done that. I've done my fair share of taking on people's feelings about me and making them my own feelings. And those thoughts have kind of drowned out my own thoughts. And I've started to kind of live based on what I've been told. So I had to reprogram, and I'm reprogramming still. So it's a work in progress.
It is.
Maureen?
I know that before it would be hard for me to ask for help because of the fear of rejection. To be available for others and to hear rejection, it hurts, and what I'm learning is that rejection, and I put it in the comments, like rejection is an opportunity. It just opens the door for another opportunity. And so another thing, like when you were saying that, what you just said, the narratives, right? I tell one of my clients, I say, you can't steal people's thoughts. You can't create the whole play and they never even audition for the part. So you give them this whole role and you give them this whole thing and you just practically just put them in there. And so I tell her, I was like, but is that your issue? Like, is that your issue? And a lot of people put in the comments, like, you have to find another source. Like sometimes they don't have the answers. Like you put a title because they've been there longer or they did all these things that you put an expectation on them, because if you was in that position, you would have the answers and you would do these things, but they're not Tiffany and they're not whoever else that put the people in their places. You have to know that when there's a no, because God gives us no's. You know, what we go find another God? No, we wait, be still, and pause. You know, we get those moments where we just gotta shut up and be still. And so if he closes the door on man, that means there's another opportunity. So we can't get in a mode where we shut ourselves down. We just look, okay, God, if you told me no, then show me who I need to go to. Or if they told me no, you ain't the only manager. You're not the only person that been here a long time, or you're not even, somebody gonna have an answer, because everybody can't be working with no answers.
Yeah. That's a great way to reframe that. And it's embracing the delay, right? Like, it's just, that thing is not for me right now. So I just need to embrace the fact that these people, those 3 people ain't supposed to answer my questions. It's something about them. God was like, right? Like it was something. And so it's just reframing that, like, I'm going to embrace the delay. Like every no is not something that I want to put on my plate and make it like mine. They're saying no to Shantae Jackson. No, they ain't saying no to me, right? Like my whole self.
Right.
Just whatever they need, I ain't got it. That's cool. People don't, they don't like me. They don't like what you have to offer, and that's cool. And so it's just embracing the delay and being okay with that. And a lot of that is cultural, right? Like you said, and I think she said it in there, the whole thing about self-esteem. We're taught to highlight all of the things that are great about us, right? And we're also taught to, no, you need to figure it out because they expecting you to fail. Right. And so that's stuff we have to like unlearn, right? Because that's not always be true. It's not going anywhere. We trying really hard now, at the climate of the world, but let's be honest, that stuff is not going to go anywhere. So what do we have to do? We got to start working right here, because they going to do what they do. It's not going to change, but you can.
At least not in the foreseeable future. We're going to have many, many years of some of the situations before we start to see any improvement in any direction. So
work on yourself in the meantime. Just saying, right? Like, let's be real.
Jocelyn, your hand was up.
Yes, I was just chiming in because for me, I don't ask for help because I'm always the person who gives the help. But I forgot who said it. She hit it on the nose. I think it was Ola when she was saying that we have to be our best selves. So if I'm always the go-to person that everyone comes to for help, then that sort of makes me look like I ain't got all my stuff together. I guess that's how I sort of feel. My grandmother is giving me the worst side eye, by the way. But no, I just really came to that realization while we were having this conversation, is that that's ultimately the reason why I don't ask for help. And I drown, like how you were stating earlier. I will drown, like Titanic drown, sinking, and have all the help around me. But I'm like, nope, because of my pride. I'm like, I'm supposed to have all my stuff together because everybody is relying on me all the time, whether they're coming to me with questions, having me to help them do things. So if they're always coming to me, the other side of it too is, if they're always coming to me, then they always need me. So they may not have what I need for them to help me. But you never know till you ask. And my grandmother just said, no, she said, you never know till you ask.
Grandma getting her together over there. Thank you, Grandma.
I know.
For Grandma.
I'm gonna mute myself.
I have a question. I know in the podcast she mentioned, oh wait, I see a hand up before I speak. Trinae, your hand is up.
It is. So I agree with what Jocelyn said. And then as someone who is also guilty of that, I feel like sometimes I get gratification from helping others, and that's what drives. But I too am guilty of not asking for help and drowning. But my sincere apologies for taking us a couple steps back. I thought I had my hand up the whole time, and I just realized that I was just liking what everyone was saying a lot, and my hand was not up. So I had a really big question for me, because it's one of my struggles in the process of growing and unlearning behaviors. How would you guys recommend to know the difference between someone that's toxic or toxicity versus accountability? I know we moved on from that, but that was a big question that I had.
Okay, before anybody else chime in. So I would say that for me, I look at their lifestyle and their behaviors, right? So I'm looking at how you live in life and my interactions with you, right? So if all of my interactions have been positive and been good, and they come to me with something like, hey sis, you be a little too hype, I need you to, calm down. I can see that as, okay, this person is kind of holding me accountable, and they're challenging something in me that's going to make me better. When you walk away from these relationships, right, you feel better, or you feel like this person has your best interest at heart. When you think about a toxic person, you never feel good after any interaction with them, right? And their criticism is going to come with language that tells you that it's not coming from a place of love. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll give you even a different example too, because like, I know you said that a toxic person, you always feel like the conversations are negative, but in my experience, I've had some situations where some of the conversations are kind of positive, and that's where you get tripped up, right? Because it's like every now and then they'll sprinkle a little goodness in the mix of it, and you're like, okay, this is why I rock with this person, and then boom, gut punch. Like I was talking to someone today, for instance, or yesterday, and I was talking about where I work. And they were like, well, what made you go to that company? And I said, well, I did my research and this is what I think. And the person said, well, let's just hope that everything is what you think it's going to be. That's a toxic response, right? And I'm like, no, I've done my research and my husband's worked there 3 years, whatever it is, met with pessimism again. And each time I talk to this person about different things, they always have a problem for every solution. So it's like, they'll talk about a situation and I'll say, well, why don't you try this? Oh, that's not going to work. Oh, why don't you try this? Oh, that's not going to work. It's like you're so stuck in being in this perpetual cycle of victimhood, or you want to shut things down because you don't want to move from your current state. You want to stay where you are. You want to stay stuck. You want to stay in this vicious cycle of like just not growing and not doing better for yourself. And being around people who think that way or act that way, it can be toxic, because it'll cause you to kind of seep into that mindset. And so I love people who are like, why don't you try this? Or, yep, it's going to be amazing. Or we're going to pray that I have friends who I tell them, I like this job, but we're going to pray it's going to be everything you thought it was going to be. That's a healthy relationship versus the person who is just constantly negative or always pessimistic about things.
Yeah, I agree. Do we have hands?
I thought we had it. Well, no, so we had the hand already. Yeah, that Trinae was the hand that I saw. I was going to ask the question. She mentioned living in your gifts, right? And not using your gifts. And that was a big one. And how if you're bored, it's because you're not using, your purpose, you're not tapping into your purpose. So do we believe that living outside of our gifts is not showing ourselves love? If you're not operating at your full capacity, are you failing to take the opportunity to love yourself properly? You get what I'm saying? Like, because we all have a purpose on this earth, right?
Yeah.
And so like, if you've been given a purpose and you have gifts and you're just kind of like going about your day and just operating, whatever, and you're not really living out your purpose, you're not living in your gifts, is that truly loving yourself appropriately?
Hey Tiff, this is Jocelyn.
Yeah.
Me and my grandmother both were just like, I really actually have never thought about it in that way. Because I guess I think a lot of us, sometimes we don't even realize what our purpose is until we find out what our purpose is. So we usually are just
opportunity hasn't presented itself.
I don't know if you heard it. She's saying sometimes the opportunity hasn't presented itself. So even like now, I feel like I've only been living in my purpose for 1 full year. I discovered it last year and I'm fulfilling that purpose. But did I feel less of myself before? Not necessarily. I didn't feel complete, but at the same time, I didn't feel like because I wasn't doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing, because I didn't know that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Well, no, so maybe it's more along the lines of once you realize. Like, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I worked my whole life. After my first Pause and PR event, there was this feeling, this I can't explain it. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is what I was put here to do. And all of the sacrifices made sense. All of like the pruning and the development, it made sense. And now that I have this purpose, if I were to just return to work and just not do what I'm supposed to be doing, there's this whole layer of life that I wouldn't even be experiencing. Like, it wouldn't even be the gratitude. Like when she talked about self-love and soul, like soul love, I think it was, like my soul is delighted with this work. And I could care for myself all day, but nothing else is giving me this feeling.
I totally get it. Because right now I'm literally in the career that I'm like, this is where we're supposed to be. And I feel so fulfilled behind it. And yeah, it's gratifying. And I'm like, how can this be gratifying? But it is. When I'm a school teacher, for those who don't know, and going through the period of being away from my kids, it has dampened my spirits because I miss my kids. I miss being able to interact with my students. They just, like you said, I can't even put it into words how I feel, but I knew this. I was literally had that aha moment, like, this is what I've supposed to been doing all along, Jocelyn. Get it together, girl. Hurry up. So I understand what you're saying now.
Yes, Ebony's hand was up as well. Yes, Miss Ebony.
I was gonna say, I think if you think of your gifts as something that will fuel whatever it is that you're doing and fuel you as a person, then yes, right? So I think, just to kind of think about the things that you're really passionate about and the place that you feel like you're supposed to be in life, if you're doing that, then you will feel like you are given to the world, but then also given to yourself, because it's a cyclical process where you're giving to others and yourself at the same time. But I think for those who kind of don't know, I think they feel like I am still exercising some level of self-love, but until you actually reach that point where you realize, no, this is the thing, then you don't actually realize that you are actually stealing this joy from the world or from yourself or your heart or whatever that might be. So I think it just depends on if you feel like that's something that is going to fuel you even further in life, but then also continue whatever it is that you're trying to achieve or whatever it is that you're trying to get to in life.
I like it. I like it. Shantae is still thinking about it.
Because that's a really good question. But then too, I also think about the people who don't have the luxury, right, to be able to share their gifts with the world. And here's the thing, like, I understand that there are loopholes to everything and everybody should be able to do whatever it is, but there are some instances where people don't have the luxury to be able to live out their gift to, the world. And I don't know if I would say that they don't love themselves. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like those people or I don't know. I'm on the, I don't know.
Is it like a different, like we've been in relationships where like, we really like the person. We really love the person. We're deeply in love with the person. Yeah. And I feel like tapping into that gift, that purpose, is like, I can stay here forever. I'm deeply in love with this person, this space, this thing. And it's almost for your own benefit that you get to experience living in your gift. Because otherwise, like, you don't know what you're missing out on if you don't do it right. But once you do it and you feel it and you experience it, you understand why you were given the gift in the first place. It makes so much more sense to you.
Yeah, and I think that's too also people having to know and identify like what gifts are, right? So for some people, a gift may be the gift of listening, right? So my gift is not going to be seen in the world, right? And so you then start to think about like those things, like there are levels to gifts and levels to things that God has given us that other people may not have or that's unique to us. And so it's just, I really think
Your
it's just
gift is going to be seen, Shantae. Your gift will be seen. I'm going to tell you why your gift is going to be seen. Because and I'm going to go to Evie and Maureen because Evie's putting they are putting comments in the chat box and going on fire, and I love what you said. So I'm gonna go to Evie in just a second. I'm working on it, getting it right. Shantae, your gift is going to be seen because if your gift is listening to other people, who knows who's going to come through you, who needs to be heard, and that person could have an assignment that's going to require them being outward. And because you created capacity for them to be heard, they get a chance to move into where they're supposed to be and now bless the world with their gift. And so we're all interconnected. It kind of goes back to what Evie was saying. It's like, or was it Eb? It's cyclical. Eb said it. It's cyclical, right? So it's like when you give, you're getting something back in return. You're going to create capacity for someone who has to come through you, and you have the ability to listen. And then once they leave you, they go out and do whatever it is they're supposed to bless the world with. And your hand is going to be on that person. What if you were Barack's therapist? What if you were Michael Jackson's therapist or Michael Jordan's therapist?
Yeah.
Your gift was listening, and because you helped them to be okay, they got to bless the world.
You know what? I think this brings me to a different thought. I think a lot of times we feel like our gifts need to be seen.
Yep.
And so I think that's where my disconnect is, right? So as y'all are talking and I'm like processing in real time, I'm like, I think it's because we feel like when we have gifts, so we feel like when we have gifts, the world has to see it or it has to be monetized, right? So if it's not those two things, maybe
it's a hobby.
It's a exactly. And so that's, maybe that's where my disconnect is and why this question is like really, have me kind of on the fence. This is good.
It is good.
Yeah.
Evie, Maureen, and then Akira to close us out.
So I shared in the comments that something that I realized is that I believe, and especially as I've been working with clients, I'm a coach. And so as I've been working with folks and just realizing the genius that everyone has in their bodies, like this knowledge that people have that they don't realize, that people don't realize that they know. And realizing that is withholding that from the world is almost like stealing that from that medicine that person has to give to the world. It's like something that the world needs, because a lot of times I'll see this in somebody and I'm like, wow, like the world would be a really different place if you were like really showing fully in your full humanity. And I want to see what that looks like. And then to even progress on that is that, once I see people bloom, it's like they are a completely different version of themselves. And they even are like, I hadn't met this version of myself yet. I didn't even know what I was capable of. Like once you get into that, you find your purpose, you're like doing it. People, it's like they come alive and they emerge into a whole new dimension of themselves. And so for those of us who are struggling with that, it's like, we may feel like it's not possible, but it's like we haven't met the version of ourselves that is in abundance. Like we haven't met the version of ourselves that is just like really living into our purpose. And like when we do that, everyone can see it. And even sometimes the people who were naysayers or who were like not supporting us are like, whoa, like this is for real. Like you're really doing this. Has been really a powerful realization for me, and then something to share with other people as well.
You see what they just did right there? You see that? Did you see that?
Can we just pass the collection plate? I'm gonna start with every go across to the screen, like, cause come on, sis.
And that's it right there. That's what I'm saying. It's that living in your purpose. You can't explain it. It fuels your soul in real life, and you just show up different every single time.
That is true. It's a switch that happens, right? It's just like no matter what we're going through, when you step into that purpose, you own. it comes naturally, right? All the nerves shake off, all that stuff you were scared about, it just happens.
It changes your why.
Ooh.
It changes your why, and it fuels you to get up every single day because now you understand.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
Maureen, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We're just loving this so much.
Right.
Yeah, Evie, you the nugget dropper tonight. Like,
Listen.
girl, yeah.
I know.
I was gonna say it's levels to it though. Like, and what she's saying, when you reach there, so in order to reach there, you have to elevate, and your process may be longer than others, but you got to respect your process. And I don't think, you know, I just like self-love, I think you get to a level, it's levels to it. You know, you don't treat yourself the same when you realize accountability is important. You don't treat yourself when you realize you are part of the enemy just as much as the people who you point to. You know, you treat yourself when you realize that, you know, you're a part of the problem and you are also a part of the solution. It's just different. You know, you do different things because, and also like how someone was saying, like when you don't know your purpose and you just fulfilling like in obedience, like what lays on your plate, you're fulfilling in obedience, and that's about self-love because you're not withholding anything from anybody because of what you feel like inside. Like there's some things like as I still search for my purpose, I don't negate the fact that the things that God made me good at. You know, I keep, if people need something and God gave it to me to give to them, I keep doing it. And in that, in this level of where I'm at, it's still a gratification of self-love for me. But I know I look forward to that day of my whys being answered. I look forward to that day because when I see people walking in their purpose and I see people doing exactly what it is that they find that oomph in, that's exciting for me. Like I want to be there, but until I get there, I'm celebrating on my way. And so that's something that I realize like that's important too.
Yeah, that's good.
I love it. I love it so much. Akira Zelliner, your hand is up.
You don't have to call my whole name. So, talking about your gift, your passion. For years, I didn't know I'm a hairstylist, and I think even if I wasn't a hairstylist, I like being around people, helping people, talking with people. I know I don't talk much on here, but when I had to move away, I had a big clientele, man. I had to move away, and I had people calling me and texting me like, "Hey, you know, we miss you, but this person is not the same." And I'm like, "There's millions of hairstylists in Miami." But I guess just my personality, people wanting to be around me and just enjoy my conversation, it made me realize like, well, I guess I am good at what I do, like with my hands, but I think it was just me as an individual, just being around these people. And that I took it seriously. Like, I guess before I didn't, but I guess hearing it from other people just made me feel different. I was like, this is my purpose, being here for women, setting the bar. I mean, all these reviews and comments that I hear, it made me realize what I'm here to do.
Yeah, I mean, she do a little something else.
First of all,
yeah, I will mute you. No. But you know, well, it's so funny. I remember when you went through this period where you weren't going to do hair, and the way you showed up in the world was so different, right? Yeah. And the moment you got back to doing hair, it's almost like you came alive.
Yep.
And that's the thing. It's like when you figure out what you're meant to do and you understand it, you show up different. That's the only way to describe it. Because even now I'm going back to work. Like I'm clear. I love my job and I'll take all the promotions they give me. But my purpose is this. So if I have to be up until 2 a.m. to put together my PowerPoint for this call, that's what's going to happen because this is my purpose and this is what brings me to life. Like it fuels me to keep going. Buki, your hand is up. You're the last comment and then we're going to do the winner of the giveaway and we'll close out.
So I just want to say first, thank you guys for transparency. As someone who is still, I don't know, I just feel like I'm in my 20s and stuff is just all over the place right now. I don't know what I want to do. one second I want to cry, one second I want to scream, one second I'm like, oh, I can do this. One second I'm like, wait a minute, no, I can't. And lately it's been a lot of like a couple people in my life pushing me to do more. But it's me saying, okay, well, it's like I have confidence in myself. I just don't know that I'm all the way confident that I'm ready. Like, am I too young? Am I too inexperienced? Am I too, I don't really have someone with me doing it. I'm alone. Like, if I fail, baby, I fail on my own. Like, I fall on my own face. And it's like, am I ready to risk everything that I have to go for that extra mile? Like, right now, I'm good. I'm okay. But I do feel that like itch. And I don't know, Tiffany, if you had that before you started Pods and PR, but like, I feel like there's something else or something more I should be doing, but I don't know that I can tap into it all the way. So it's helpful to hear the stories of like people that have already fallen into their purpose. Obviously you, Tiffany, being one of the people in my life that has, but I don't know who else said they're a school teacher now, and just like that love that they have for what they do and missing their kids. Like, I want that. I don't have that yet. So.
Yeah, I remember when I was, last time I was working, it was funny because I was getting frustrated with my employer because I wanted more. I wanted them to give me more. And I kept saying, they're not seeing my talent. They're not allowing me to use all my gifts and my skills. And I put the responsibility on them to see me. And when I stopped working, that's when I had the responsibility to see myself. And as I, even talking about it, I'm about to start crying, that's crazy. I put the responsibility on myself to see myself. And when I started seeing me and uncovering all the different layers and gifts and just things that God blessed me with, it was a different kind of intimacy with myself. And I can't really explain it, but it was in that moment I realized, like, I hear people say, don't wait for somebody to give you a seat at the table, you build your own table. Like, it isn't always building your own table in a company. You're building it. Sometimes building your own table just means creating capacity for you to be who you are somewhere else. So outside of my job, if I'm not fulfilled leading inside of corporate, well, then I get a chance to do it outside of corporate, and it looks different, but oh my gosh, it feels amazing, but it's creating capacity for you to be seen. And
exploring why you feel like you won't be able to show up in that capacity, right? And so that was my work, is like, what am I afraid of, right? It's not, because people tell me all the time, like, oh my God, you're so great. And I'm like, okay, but it did not motivate me to want to do.
That's it. That's the thing right there. People will tell me all the time, but I look at them like that Waka Flocka meme, like.
Exactly, right? And so I had to step back, right? And like, what is it that they're seeing that I don't see in myself? And I had to explore that. And here's the thing. I still have days where I'm still like scared to be the homegirl therapist. I still have those moments. Absolutely. Tiffany, don't start. I still have those moments, right? Because you get in your own head, and I struggle with self-doubt. And a lot of it is me feeling like I'm supposed to be something else, right? Like be a different type of therapist, instead of me sitting in like, this is your lane. Like, this is for you. This is your purpose. Exactly how you're doing it. Exactly how you talk. Exactly what your swag is. Like, this is it, right? And there are going to be people who are going to tell me like, nah, I can't rock with you. I like to hear someone who like reads from a book and they speak all, nice and use big words. And I'm like, that's fine. There are people out there that's like that. I say ain't, right? And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to keep it real with you. You know what I'm saying? But I had to explore that on my own. I was afraid of being myself. That was my ultimate issue. I was afraid of being who I am fully, because I was afraid of what other people would say about me. I was afraid of what other people would say about my credentials, because I don't talk how they talk. I was afraid of that. I was afraid of not knowing the answer to a question, right? Like I'm a therapist. Everybody wants you to know everything. And I got to the point where it's like, I don't know. Like when Tiffany was talking about the inner court, outer court, I could have sat up here and tried to lie to y'all. Don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. And it's okay for me to not know and sit in that. That's until I was okay with that, right? Until I was at a place where it's like, sis, it's fine. Like you can still do this while learning through it. I think we feel like we got to have it all together. And she mentioned it in the podcast. When I lose the 10 pounds, then I'm going to start working on myself. Or when I do this or get this job, then I'm going to start working on finances. And it's like, no, why does it have to be a condition on that? So I'm going to continue to learn through this process and grow. And I'm going to challenge myself while doing it and surround myself with people like Tiffany Ellis who's going to challenge me, anyway. And so
push each other. That's what we do.
And so it's just like, I just want people to know that no one has it all together. The more we in 2020, I'm seeing everyone is human. I feel like we are all on the same, like these celebrities, everybody got problems, right? Like everyone does. And so I think knowing that should help alleviate some of the pressure that we put on ourselves to have it together all the time. It's not possible.
You're just the right therapist for us. So I'm telling you now, so many women are in therapy right now because you made it seem normal. Like you made it cool. And I praise you all the time. I know it makes you feel uncomfortable, but I just can't say it enough because people are so receptive. They're hanging on to every word because you make therapy appetizing, You're just normal with it. It's easy. It's simple. It's good. So.
Yeah. It don't have to be an entanglement. It can be really nice.
Listen. Bars. Y'all ain't ready for us. We're going on tour.
Tay, the reason why people really gravitate towards you, and I don't know why they don't, is because you really are the homegirl therapist. You make therapy feel like I'm going to talk to one of my homegirls or someone who I can relate to. And I think that's why a lot of Black women in particular, we shy away from going to therapy because what we had in our mind was this real, uptight white individual who really can't relate to us, gonna make us sit on the sofa and we gonna cry. And they still not gonna relate to us because I'm speaking from self-experience. That's what happened to me. My first therapist was a white guy. I sat on the sofa. I felt like he couldn't relate to me because I was a teenage Black female and he was a middle-aged white man. I was like, how you ain't really went through what I went through, so I don't even know why I'm talking to you. But with you, and this is another plug for Tay.
Y'all killing me.
It's just having a conversation. Yeah. And that's what it should feel like.
Thank you.
For the top.
You should. Thank you. Okay, can we move on? Thanks.
So I have my awkward, right? No, it's okay. So I have my wheel of names from Arlesia. Oh, Arlesia, I don't think all the names are in there. No, Linda. Uh-oh. So she, it's okay, because we've been trying to work this out by text while y'all was talking, but she did send the winner. So the funny story is the first winner that was chosen was my best friend. So I said, you got to roll again because she's not winning nothing on this platform. Nothing, not a thing.
Wait. Don't do like that. You be muting her now. You're not gonna let her win.
Oh, y'all can't see it. So
why I can't win?
So the first name was Akara Z, right?
Thank you.
No, you're not winning. So then I said, roll it again, and it was Eb, and I said, roll it again.
Now wait a minute. You see?
Tiffany, your mama said that y'all didn't put her name in, so you need to do the drawing again.
Wait a minute.
Tell Grandma, I got her. So you know what I'm gonna do?
This is racist.
This is entanglement.
So listen, because I like you guys just this much. Shantae and I will gift you all the prizes. So you get a shirt, you get a sticky note. No, I'm playing. We will we'll send you all your shirts and your sticky notes, and then Jocelyn, we love Grandma. She was very engaged in the conversation. So send me her size and I'll order her a shirt too as well.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, no problem.
She's over here talking about y'all discriminating because of age when y'all went for the Oh, this is who I get it from, Tiffany. This is who I get it from. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to show you guys this real quick and then we're going to end the call. It's going to be just the takeaway points, right? And we didn't go through the whole PowerPoint.
I was going to say, look how God worked, because you was so stressed and God was like, what slideshow?
So just ways to love you more. I thought it was so when she said you're worthy of rest and love and respect and honor. I just thought that was like so special. I loved hearing it. I had to play it again. I had to bring it back and just replay it again because it felt good to remind myself of those little things. And now as I'm approaching 30, how old am I going to be? 39 this year? 38? I can't remember. 38? Okay. I'm going to be 38 this year. And so I'm really in a place now where I'm looking forward to being able to be vulnerable in spaces. Like, I don't want to have to be like this anymore or like tough all the time. I really want to be able to be vulnerable now. And so I'm grateful that I have places I can go and just be who I am authentically. And I just encourage each of you to find your spaces where you feel safe and you're able to be vulnerable. Stop allowing your gifts to remain dormant. So, I'm always telling y'all, I'm going to push you. If you have a gift or a purpose and you want it out there, you're in the wrong circle because we're going to hold you accountable. We're going to make sure that you're doing everything you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
I want y'all to hold me accountable to go into the gym when I get here to Georgia. So I'm moving the week of August 10th through the 14th. And once I move back up here, she's going to be in the gym all the time. And if I'm not, y'all call me out, make me feel bad because this second chin has to go. Cultivate healthy friendships and relationships. And that sounds very easy. It takes a lot of work to cultivate healthy friendships and relationships. It's a very intentional, everyday kind of act, but you're all worthy of it. And you're capable of cultivating healthy relationships. So start putting in the work to make that necessary. Speak up for yourself and stop being afraid to say no. And we talk about this all the time. I don't think we could ever talk about self-love enough on this platform. We could talk about this once a month, really. We probably should. Okay. So speak up for yourself and stop being afraid to say no, because you don't always have to say yes. You don't have to be a people pleaser. You're worth being loved even when you disagree. And then she said something like write vows to yourself and honor your vows. I've never done that before, but I think I'm going to do that because it just seems like, I made vows with my husband and I take those vows very serious. So why not make those kind of vows to myself and commit to that, right?
Yes.
So those are the takeaways from the conversation. If you're not following us on social media, please follow the Homegirl Therapist. She is the Homegirl Therapist on all platforms. I am pods_and_PR on all platforms. And then on Monday, you can join us for So What Had Happened Was, which is basically what we tell y'all. So what had happened during our conversation the Friday before. And we throw a little pop culture in there. If you missed last week's conversation about the entanglement edition, you want to go and catch that. That is on our social media as well. We did talk about the Will and Jada situation, but not in a completely messy way. We broke apart the therapeutic aspects of it, right? And how we can use them as an example for growth. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. Yes.
I did. This was great. I hope something resonated with you guys and y'all can take something and use it and apply it to your lives, because we just legit want y'all to be great. Like,
this was amazing. Thank you, ladies.
Yay, good. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. And we hope to see you all again, not next week, but the week after. We will put the podcast episode up. And if you have any suggestions, send them on over to us. Let us know. We'd be happy to feature the podcast you talk about, and we'll talk about it. So, bye.
Bye, Grandma.
Bye.
She said bye and have a wonderful weekend.
Aw, Grandma's feeling. She ain't cook us no food. I'm up here. You can tell Grandma.
Okay, so she made Toscana soup. And so Olive Garden, they have the Toscana soup. It's the potato soup.
Yeah.
She made that from scratch at home.
What part of Georgia y'all in?
Lithonia. That's where she is.
Okay.
Stonecrest. It's Stone Mountain, Lithonia, Decatur. It's all right there together. That's where
Too far of a drive, Tiffany?
Huh?
Too far of a drive?
You know me, I'm like, okay, can I get over there? Oh, you got your earrings, best friend?
Oh, yes. Where, Vivian on here?
No, she's not on.
You know here. Thank you, best friend. Complimentary of my best friend. She loves me. She loves me.
They're beautiful.
Okay. Grandma being real nosy. She wants to know, what part of Atlanta are you moving to?
Smyrna.
Oh, you gonna be in my backyard, man.
Yeah, so I used to live like Snellville, Stone Mountain last time I lived here. But I'm gonna be working south, like near East Point, and my husband's gonna be working at Atlantic Station. So we decided we want to be in Smyrna because it's school district for Jay.
Okay, cool. A stone throw from me, literally.
You said what happened?
Now you know, Grandma.
Oh, well, I won't meet you unless you bring you over here.
Yes, ma'am. I would love to meet you.
She said that you won't meet her unless I bring you over here to meet her.
I've got a friend here from Washington State.
She's a talker. She's way more talkative than I am. So if y'all ain't ready, I'll mute or I'll leave right now.
Oh, I'll meet you when you get here.
Wait a minute. Look, wait a minute. I'm gonna turn the camera on. You see it?
Oh, Grandma, like, no, don't show me.
Hey, Grandma.
You got me on there.
I do. Just say
it's okay. It's all right.
One.
This
How
is
you out there? Oh, I look awful.
No, you don't.
You look good, Grandma.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you so very much.
She will be 79 in August.
Oh, 79.
That is a blessing.
Yes, it is a blessing.
Okay. Did I turn me back? Okay, I done
I
turned
got
around
a few
2
more
times.
years to live. I got over 27 more years to live.
This is my boo thing.
Right,
Over there. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Hey, Jay, you did an awesome job tonight, production crew.
He was in the back working.
He had to get video footage and all of that, so he was recording videos and all of that.
He did a great job.
Adjusted the light. He got this light so bright in my face, though. Good Lord.
But it's okay, because you know you popping the things that need for
I
popping.
left my setting powder. That's a separate conversation. Let me end my YouTube live. Hold on.
Look, y'all, she is still over here rubbing her